Welcome to Your Number Man, where we share financial strategies, business insights, and inspiring stories to help you navigate a successful business. I am your host, Johan, and my goal is to help you achieve a bigger life in business. Welcome again for another exciting program of Your Number Man. In our discussion today, we'll talk about aligning budget planning with your business strategy. I've also got two very special guests with me today to take us through the whole process. So it's going to be a bit more of a discussion today. First of all, I would like to introduce Suzanna Paul. Now, Suzanna has started a career as a stakeholder relationship manager for various local government departments. She's armed with a master's in public health and gained extensive experience in marketing, communication, client relations, and negotiations through that area. Now, she's also very passionate about real estate. Within 2 short years, she built a roll-up where she went to work. And where was it, Susanna?
I joined this group called Empire Property Investors. The reason I did that is I actually had a networking session and I was about to start a business, and the estate manager said, "Why don't you come and join us?" And then I just completely changed direction and joined it, which was great because I could learn all the things and make all the mistakes.
And within 2 short years, you were a team leader, you were managing consultants as well. Welcome to our podcast here today.
Thank you.
Today, you've got your own business, Maya Paul, Real Estate, where you keep on building on your passion to offer your best possible service to your clients and help them with an experience that go beyond their expectations. I'm also very proud to say that you are part of our mentoring panel at the Polaris Group, the Polaris Development Center in Mawson Lakes. People will hear me doing a lot of emphasis on mentoring today as well, because I think we're also going to combine the strategic planning and budgeting with a lot of the mentoring and how does that all fit into business and the value that mentoring can actually give to small business owners. And also, no stranger to the show, we've got Rob Chisholm here again in our studio. He's been here twice before, and Rob's been in business more than 40 years as a small business owner. And Rob's also got a keen eye for holistic business operations, which he gained from several appointments on company boards over the years. Rob is also a certified business coach. In recognition for his outstanding contributions and service to small business in South Australia, Rob received the Order of Australia Medal in 1985. So today's Rob perspective has been indispensable to the shaping of Polaris Development Program, where he's also leading the business mentoring panel. So, Rob, welcome again.
Thanks, Johan. Good to be here.
That's great. Do you mind give us a little bit of a background, any new developments going on at Polaris currently?
Anybody new to your program may not know it, but Polaris is part of the city of Salisbury. It was set up some 15 years ago, and we work with businesses primarily in the northern suburbs, but more recently we've been doing work pretty much all over the state. Back last March, I was in Kangaroo Island delivering workshops and mentoring programs over there. So we're not now limited to the city of Salisbury. We invite people to contact us from anywhere in the state. We do get funded by the Office of Family and Small Business, and we're very grateful for that.
That is fantastic. So today we're going to talk about business strategy and the company's long-term plan on how it positions itself, grow and achieve its goals. Basically what I mean is it outlines the decisions a company makes to reach its objectives, stay in line with the vision, and also make sure that the company is viable. So strategy goes far beyond just planning. It's also about aligning the company's vision with clear, actionable steps to guide execution. And this alignment allows business to thrive and build resilience against competitive pressures. So, Rob, I'm coming back to you again. You're a big prophet out there talking about the 2 V's, vision and viability. How do you define a clear vision for your business, and how would you test this vision to fit into your viability?
We use the 2 V's primarily in our mentoring program. I say to the mentor panel, of whom Susanna is part of, the first thing you should find out from your prospective client is the 2 V's. The first V is the business viable. So it's no good talking about marketing plans and all that sort of stuff if they're on the edge of the cliff. So the first thing, is it viable? I had a client with me just this last week who's put in a profit of over 40,000 for the first time. When I first met them some 4 years ago, the business was almost insolvent. But I could see that it was potentially viable if they made certain changes. And some of the big changes was getting rid of partners and moving people around. Now, my client was so pleased to say at the meeting, Rob, I've made this profit. We worked with this client over those 4 years from the brink to a now very successful business. However, there are businesses where you've really got to identify there's not much hope.
Yeah.
And I do come across that.
Is that where you will send in a numbers man to just
Very good, Johan.
Yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
be the first one I'd call. For sure, because you'd be able to identify certain areas because of your expertise, particularly in the area of costing, if the business could be turned back from that cliff edge.
Yes. And look at internal processes, partners, the external environment. You always like to throw the example of Netflix and blockbusters in as well. How I think it was in turn of the century where Netflix was still changing their business model on a subscription basis and Blockbusters was still hiring out their videos, and then streaming came along and Blockbusters wasn't really interested in that because they said that's never going to work, but they weren't really looking at the viability, keeping track of the changes.
That, if you might recall, is one of my 7 key ingredients for business success. That's number 4, and that's to create leverage. How do you create leverage in your business? What's leverage? Achieving the most with the minimum effort. For example, an elevator is an example of leverage rather than climbing stairs. Franchising is a good business model for leveraging. In other words, you can be in the Bahamas sipping your margarita and back home the money's going in the bank. It's like a passive form of income. So that's where your Netflix and all of those collect $10 a month from millions of people without having to do a lot of work. They got to do a lot of work to set it up.
That's right.
But afterwards, I say to how do you create leverage? Now, in planning, or as you talk about strategic planning, long term, how can we find that leverage in a business? Advertising can be a form of leverage as well.
Yes, no, that makes sense. Now, Suzanna, the whole concept about leverage, and you've got to be very switched on in real estate to plan for where the industry is going. So how do you balance your short-term financial needs with long-term strategic objectives in terms of how do you do your budgeting, your cash flow?
That's a very good question. If I could go one step back in terms of the vision Rob was talking about, I think there are 2 visions when you set up the business. One is the vision in terms of where you see your business going or how you see your business. For example, in our case, we wanted to create a boutique agency in residential real estate. That was our goal. We also wanted clients who have positive experience. We wanted to have VIP experience for the clients. So that was our vision. But then the second vision, I think, is why are you doing it? Why are you leaving a job, a stable job or a stable salary and starting a business? Those 2 items help you throughout your process because there are many times where you question yourself. Over the years, I've had mentors, and I've been very fortunate. Rob's been my mentor. And there's been many times I question, why am I doing this? I'd be better off working for someone else. So having those 2 visions in front of you consistently and thinking, okay, why am I doing this? It's really important. The second one I think is also important because if you are budgeting for it and you're looking at, for example, a lot of people say, I want to target high-end clients and things like that, but you look at their cars is dirty, you look at their office is dirty, you look at their business card, doesn't reflect the vision that they're trying to achieve. So in budgeting, you actually have to look at everything from that point of view in terms of long-term, how you are going to achieve your vision by budgeting for where you want to go. So I think that's really important.
So you almost want to reverse engineer it.
I mean, a lot of times you look at people and they design their own logos, their own business cards, and they go, we want to target high-end clients. You have to spend a bit more money on this to get that right, and then you work through it. So we actually spend a lot of time. We got someone who designed our logo, all our branding is basically based on that. So I think that's important when you're budgeting, when starting a business, but also as you continue. Branding is really important. In terms of how we look at short-term needs and make sure it aligns with our plan, we have two sources of income. I think it's important as a business to have several sources of income. So for us, it's the property management and sales. So that was something that we introduced after a couple of years being in the business, or probably just over 18 months. We introduced property management because that is a consistent, constant income. So you find that a lot of, like we were talking about subscriptions, a lot of the solicitors, lawyers are now introducing subscription. As a service provider, you've got to find a source of income. Sales can be unpredictable. Sometimes it can be high, sometimes it can be low. In real estate, when we sell a property, it could take 60 to 90 days to settle. The expenses have to come from somewhere. So I think that's really important to have maybe a couple of sources of income in a business. That's always very useful. The data shows that 20% of businesses fail within the first year. 60% of businesses fail in 3 years. 50% of the business don't survive after 5 years. And when you look at the reasons, pretty much 80% of it is budgets. They don't have a budget. They overcapitalize. They don't have cash flow. As business owners, one of them, I didn't want to know about budgets. I wasn't interested in numbers, and I think Rob was really persistent over the years. I just wanted to do my job, which was servicing clients, selling property, things like that. So for me, it was a real eye-opener after a couple of years when I realized that is the most important thing to do as a business owner.
Sit down and
do your numbers.
do that number crunching.
Correct,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that will probably bring me to my next point, Rob. You need to work in that flexibility for your budget to adapt to unexpected challenges while staying aligned with your strategy. Obviously, we don't have crystal balls, and you probably can tell us a little bit more how you've experienced in your businesses and with the people that you mentor. How do they apply the whole concept of the SWOT analysis, for instance, in their business?
The SWOT's part of business plan. Everybody knows that: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and strengths. So if you're honest with yourself and say, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Or I prefer to term it absence of strengths. What are the opportunities and what are the threats? And if you're talking about budgeting first, which is somewhat distinct to business planning, and again, different to strategic planning. So budgeting to me is a mini business plan. It's generally a 1-year plan. You say, where do I want to be at the end of the financial year? What profit do I want to make? One of the best ways to look at it is to say, what gross profit percentage do I want? What percentage for my expenses? Am I satisfied with the 12% profit on sales? That's one way to approach it, right? But of course, it all depends on the sales. If we don't have sales, we don't have anything. Right? So, and even in that, you could still use your SWOT analysis to achieve that. Because in doing a budget, it's not simply the figures. It's saying, if I do this amount of marketing, will that marketing reflect in the sales? If I add on this employee, will that employee reflect in productivity? So it's not simply looking at the numbers, it is the mini business plan. A business plan generally is over 3 years, and your strategic plan should precede your business plan or even your budget. Your strategic plan should be creative.
And it comes back to that vision, like Suzanna said.
And we do Suzanna's business just about every year, and she's insisted on it. She's called me up and say, Rob, I want to book the strategic plan session. She'd bring her employees in and we'd have this strategic plan for the year ahead. That's a creative session.
So, Suzanna, you brought in your whole team. Everybody put in their remarks and their ideas. And you asked the people, what would they like to see in a business? What is their personal goals as well?
Yes, definitely. I think that's really important. Having worked for governments and large corporations, we used to have 20, 30-page plans every year. And that's quite cumbersome as a business owner or as a manager to achieve them. So with our strategic plan, it's a 1-pager, which seems quite simple, but at the same time, we cover all the major items. We cover the staffing, we cover the marketing, we cover resources, we cover sales. So in that, obviously, Rob has a list of items that he facilitates for us. By having an external person bring the questions up front, the staff are not afraid to say what they think. So we're sitting together, we all bring out all our ideas, And then from that, actually, we've been able to do great things.
Yeah.
And also finding out where do we need to go and what are we missing. I think that's really important. As a business owner, you are quite lonely. And a lot of times people think, I've just got to sit in my office and come up with a plan and do the budget. Staffs are the best sources for information.
And Rob, that's probably where your mentoring skills comes in as well, together with Suzanna's skills, because you're mentoring your team as well. And Rob, I imagine you would stand there in front of everybody and you've got a whiteboard in front of you.
We use butcher's paper.
Yes.
We stick it all around the wall.
Correct. Yep.
It's a casual process, but ordered at the same time, isn't it?
Yes.
How we do it.
Yes, yes.
And it's been very effective with Susanna's business and other clients of mine. They all want it done before the end of June so they can prepare their budget, because from the strategic plan, that's how you then develop your 12 months budget.
Yes.
So in the strategic plan, if, for example, they're going to move office, and that would be under the heading accommodation. Now, we've got to put that in the budget because that's going to cost money. The move is going to cost money. Maybe we have to pay more rent. So that goes in the budget. The strategic plan is a prerequisite, in my view, to preparing. If you're serious about budgeting, you use the term crystal ball. There's no crystal ball. What the budget does is help the use of that crystal ball, right? Because you really then, and you're the business owner in Suzanna's case, she knows her industry 10 times better than I do, right? And so she's the best one at the end of the day to make the judgment on those things. All I do is point.
And facilitate it.
I don't even give advice, do I, Suzanna?
No, you never give it.
Give advice.
I just point.
Yeah. You always put a disclaimer in, I don't give advice. And that's probably bringing us back to mentoring, because as a mentor, what do you always say, Rob? You've got to understand, you've got to have empathy. But in your case as well, Suzanna, you're the owner of the business and your team, even if you're the boss, you're also mentoring the group. Establishing that culture, and everybody can put their hand up with ideas. So everybody's accountable as well in a strategic plan, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's where I think the staff help you achieve your goals. A lot of times we forget that they're the ones steering the way with us. So we're not standing alone doing it. So when the staff come up with ideas, so in 1 year, for example, one of the things that the staff wanted to do is for us to outsource our social media. Now, over the years, I had consulted with few people and they said, look, Facebook and social media is not good for real estate, which was quite bizarre, but that was an expert who told me this. And I was a bit questioning that. But as a team, we discussed it in one of our strategic planning sessions, and the staff said, no, we think we should do this. So we actually did a tender process. We interviewed a few companies and selected one. We actively put money into it and gave them our directions, what we wanted them to achieve for them to go ahead. Our staff was happy because that was their idea. They would help us get the information to them on time. From the reports, we could see, are we getting results or are we not getting results? And I think as a business owner, you always want to measure, test, and then check. If it's not working, just change direction. But don't be against everything. Give it a try and then see how that works. You'd be surprised how many times you actually get results from it.
That's right. Yeah, not always just shaking everybody's idea off, because you've got to be very careful not to be too much of a dictator, for lack of a better word.
Yes. And a lot of times, some ideas are not expensive. So during COVID, where we all as business owners suffered with closure of business, we couldn't do open inspections, we couldn't have auctions. There was a lot of restriction on every business, and we felt it. We started our blog. So every month we were sending it out to the clients, and that doesn't cost anything. But it was just us communicating. We started doing video blogs, so vlogs. We started interviewing about different topics with financial planners, with lawyers, with things about estate planning. We did one on downsizing for first home buyers. So it didn't cost us much. It was more time. But at the same time, we didn't lose touch with our clients. And that was really good because our staff had suggested it. So we just went with that. I think that's really useful to involve your staff.
It comes back to the culture as well.
Yes, definitely.
Rob, one of the main reasons is that, coming back to the crystal ball, that we set targets. Like you said, a budget is a mini business plan, and it shows us clarity and it gives us certainty and focus.
The first thing is what you could do. I know in Suzanna's case, she's maybe done 2 or 3 business models, right? And which one now fits? Remember that
Yes.
occasion when you were looking at that property
Yes.
office and you did the model? And I was so pleased. She got back to me and said, Rob, no, I don't think we're going to go down that path because my model budget doesn't make it work.
Yep.
And, that's music to my ears when I hear my clients, because she really wanted it. She wanted this office, right? It was on a main road. It was high visibility. It was a beautiful looking building. And I knew she really wanted it. But when she did the model, right, the model said, nope, this is not going to work.
Yes.
Yep. The timing wasn't right.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
were looking at opening a second office. I thought it's just an office. But then it's all the other things that comes with the office. You've got to pay for second utility, for the service, for the staffing, for everything.
Relocation,
Relocation, everything else that you have to have. If you're having two offices, you need two of everything, stationery, everything. So then when we did the numbers, then we almost went to signing and then realized this wasn't the right time for us, which turned out to be a really good decision at the time because soon after a couple of my staff left.
Yeah, and you say now you've done the numbers, so you've put the numbers through the machine and it
Yes.
comes out and it spits some ideas out and say, no, you can't do this model. It's almost as if all of a sudden you've got this vision now. Rob, you mentioned the analogy before. It's like squirrel around in the woods looking for, but squirrels eat acorns or whatever. Always busy looking for food, but it's so busy in its current situation.
And you're talking about the forest.
Yeah, it doesn't get time to actually identify the forest
Well,
from the trees.
That's more mentoring. We say the mentor has this role where the mentor finds the client, and we find the client generally in their forest, and we find them in the posture where their head down and their tail is in the air. Now, when you're in that posture, you can't see very much. You can't see the trees for the forest or even the forest for the trees. So the mentor's job is to come along, take you by the hand, take you out of your forest, take you to this higher ground and look down on your forest together. And I would say almost without exception, that's how I've generally found my clients who are already operating a business. When your head's down, you can't see much. When your tail is in the air, you're very vulnerable. The mentor's job is to help create that broader perspective. What do we do with that boundary fence over there? Should that tree be removed? That's the analogy that we use to show the value of mentoring, because Suzanna's sold 2 of my houses for me. Right?
He's got a few.
She's found something like 5 or 6 tenants for one of my properties. But I'm not an expert on real estate. You know, how she manages her real estate and the things she does with all the other products, I don't profess to, and I probably don't even want to. But all I am able to do is to help with that area. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Help put timelines. Because as we've discussed maybe previously, and Suzanna mentioned it just a while ago, it's a very lonely job. A business owner
Lonely at the top.
is a very lonely job because you can't talk to your friends. They don't understand. Invariably, you can't even go home and talk to your partner. He or she really doesn't, and in fact could give you the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You're certainly your bank manager. I wouldn't go and ask them anyway. Your accountant, probably not.
You can get a good accountant that might listen.
A management accountant like you, Johan.
Management accountant's different. I'm
Management,
management accountant.
Yes. You certainly have the mentoring skills yourself.
Oh, thank you.
Therefore, the mentor is the only person you can really go to who, number one, understands the problem, and number two, really has your interests at heart.
Coming back to that empathy as well, putting yourself in the shoes.
Yeah, Susanna's about to find out. Mentoring is one of the most exciting professions you can be in.
It is exciting, isn't it?
I've always been on the other side, so it's interesting.
And
mentoring.
that probably makes the best mentors, is people who's done the hard yards.
I think there are a lot of people in the industry they call mentors, but they're not. They're maybe coaches, and that's a different thing. So over the years, I have had coaches, and that's different. Whereas what Rob is talking about, what we're talking about, mentoring, is a lot broader in the sense of the whole business, not just sales or marketing. It's the whole business, and that's completely different. And there are not too many great mentors, but when you find the right one, then you're on the right path.
It's like a godsend, isn't it?
It is.
It's mentoring, as I say to my clients, I'm here for you, not your business.
Yep.
Now, that sounds paradoxical, but if I'm there for the individual, I am there for their business. And at many times I've told them to get out of their business. All right, for the right reasons, because I can see no end to it. I don't give advice. I just,
put it as an
if I were you, I'd get out of it.
Yes, yeah.
So, Susanna, you obviously agree with me. Let's just focus a little bit more on the number side as well. Numbers are the language of business.
Definitely.
And you actually like touched on that before. It's like the scrambling of data, and you put it through a machine, product comes out, so all the numbers goes out and it's spread out something beautiful.
Yes.
I don't know, perhaps there's something wrong with me. Perhaps I'm a bit of a nerd. But nothing is more beautiful when you see these numbers just aligning and you see this like work of art. So I always say you can paint your strategy with numbers almost.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what Rob also says. A budget is like a business plan in numbers. The question I want to ask you is, when we use these numbers to set measurable targets, goals, and it goes beyond your business, it gives us a direction and purpose to live a meaningful life. So you would obviously agree with that in your business.
Definitely. I think one of the things that a lot of times as salespeople, because obviously as business owner, we are doing sales, whether it's a product or a service, we are salespeople. One of the big things for us, for example, is KPIs, so key performance indicators. Over the years, by listening to a lot of people in the industry, by working it out, we are able to get to a point where we can say, if I needed more business, this is what I need to do. And I think you're right. It's not a surprise. So for our business, for example, just to give you an idea, if I needed more business, I would make 30 calls. Of those 30 calls, I know that on average, I get about 12 connections. So I speak to 12
That's
people.
a good strike rate.
Of those ones, on average, I might get 1 or 2 appointments. If I can do 5 days, 30 calls at about 10 appointments, or let's say 5 appointments, of those ones, I would get 1 listing. So you find that a lot of people go, oh, there's not listing, there's not this, there's not that. A lot of our agents, they get despondent, they get upset. The rejection is a huge thing in our business.
Yeah.
But what I always say is, like you said, it's a numbers game. If the person says no, you just pick up the phone again and start making more calls. By doing the numbers, you actually succeed in terms of achieving your long-term goals. You want to earn money, do this, or take your family for holidays. That's all part of you having control over this, because things change, the environment change, the government policies change. If you can control your environment and actually bring more sales into your business, that makes the big difference. I mean, I talk a lot of times with people, and a lot of business owners, they don't pay themselves. They don't pay themselves, they don't pay their super, and you talk to them and they go, Susanna, I've been in the business for 30 years, but I don't have any super.
Yeah.
So one of the things that it was very good for me is, like when we were doing budget with Rob, is that we always had an allocation for a salary.
And
for
Rob said,
myself.
where's your salary? Yeah.
Where's your salary?
Yes.
Are you paying yourself? There are times where you can't pay yourself, but that becomes a debt. It's a liability to the business. So when you do have money, you pay yourself back. People don't think and go, I've got to pay everybody else, I've got to pay my rent. They never think, okay, my family is giving up everything for me to do this. How can I compensate that? How can I make sure that eventually I get paid? Because many times Rob would remind me and go, look, if you were working somewhere else, you will be earning 3, 4, 5 times more than what you're earning here. So let's just put something, nothing huge but conservative, but at least is consistent salary. And so that, I think that's really important in terms of achieving your long-term goals. Yeah.
And it's not being selfish. And I always like the analogy, and I think people get sick of me on the show because I say it about every second show. But imagine yourself flying in an aeroplane and there's a problem and there's oxygen masks fall from the roof.
Yep.
You've got to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help this kid or this other person next to you. So it's not selfish. You just got to make sure that you're okay. If you're okay, you can help anybody else around you.
Exactly. And I think as a business owner, a lot of times we forget. We create a lot of opportunities for other people. We give jobs to other people. Our suppliers get jobs. Our creditors get jobs from us. So in us looking after us, we make sure that we're viable to continue paying other people, being able to make sure that they continue their livelihood. So a lot of times we forget, and Rob always reminds us that you're the hero. Like a lot of the business owners, 80% of the businesses are small businesses. Everybody concentrates on the big businesses.
The biggest employer in Australia is small business.
Small businesses. So all these families, the mum and dads or the young people, entrepreneurs that started, by them looking after themselves, they can actually support the economy.
That's great. Rob, Can I mention your old friend Peter Drucker?
Measuring your business.
What gets measured gets managed.
You can't manage your business unless you measure it.
Yeah, that is basically what I'm saying. Now that you've done the budget, you've done all the hard work, but now what we've got to remember now to actually now put that to work, to make sure we keep on measuring. Suzanna, you've mentioned KPIs as well. That you've got to measure and put in action plans.
Your analogy of the airplane, there's a similar one where you're in a small airplane with a pilot sitting next to you, and it's dark and it's windy, and all of a sudden the light goes out on the instrument panel. Pretty scary. You could be flying into a mountain. You don't know how high you are. You don't know how fast you're going. And to me, your budget effectively is your instrument panel, because you can measure where you are at any given time. Some of my clients almost do it daily in terms of their sales and expenses, but certainly monthly, okay? How did we perform? I had a client this morning, went through the whole issue of where they were at, right? And we identified the problem straight away, almost straight away. Now, understanding the problem is half the problem solved.
There you go.
And in this particular case, the problem was in the gross profit. It wasn't in so much the selling price, it was in productivity. We came up with a plan, a 5-step plan to improve productivity. I'm looking forward to catching up with them next month to see how that goes.
But in your budget, when you have done your original budget with this client, you already had the gross profit in mind that you want to achieve.
Exactly. And
So-
this is where percentages come in.
Yeah,
again,
and so you
see?
could say, there's a problem, and you didn't know, was it the price, was it materials were too expensive or labor's too expensive, but then you realize it's the efficiencies.
We had a target budget percentage, I think it was 43%, and here we were in this given month, we were down to 36 or something. There's got to be an explanation for that. We did the budget originally with what we knew at the time, but we didn't get there. Why? And it wasn't sales. So again, that's the area of using that analogy of the instrument panel, because that instrument panel shows speed, it shows how high you are, right? And that's the purpose of your budget, because without it, I say, I don't work with people who aren't prepared to do a budget. I simply don't work with them.
Yeah,
Because, again, would you get in the airplane without instruments?
that's right. You say, I'm not working with you, I'm not flying with you if you don't have instruments.
That's true.
Or you can say, I don't work with you, you don't have a budget. Let's first get a budget on the table here and make sure that it's reasonable.
Then in that process, you're finding out, as Suzanna mentioned earlier, there's short-term vision, if not the longer-term range. And I don't mind working with clients to help them put it together. For some people, it's like saying, okay, we're going to learn Arabic or Icelandic language. That frightens them, right? But when you get into it, as Suzanna found, hey, it's fun.
You can plan it.
Well, can you speak Icelandic?
No, I can't. But I can speak budget now, so
You can
it's
speak
just as close.
Numbers, speak the language of numbers. That's
Yes.
great. I guess we've got to start wrapping things up. Obviously, we talked a lot about the team, the budgeting, getting everybody together as a team, and also what came out a lot in our discussion is the pivotal role good mentoring means in a business and also outside, whether you're the boss, the owner, or a senior manager, or you get somebody from the outside to be the soundboard and guide people like Rob. Is there anything else you want to mention? Have you got any success stories where you were involved with your team and strategy?
I think one of the things that, going back to what Rob was saying in terms of looking at the person's profitability and percentages, as a business owner, there are two things that a lot of people forget to do. One is to negotiate with their suppliers. So have that hard conversation from beginning and negotiate with your suppliers. And if you're good at paying them all the time, and if you're good, respectful to them, and work well with them, they will give you good prices. That's really important. The second one is negotiate with your client. In our business, for example, we have some agents that drop their prices quite a lot. And a lot of clients say to me, Suzanna, nobody else, negotiates with me. And my answer to them is that if an agent doesn't negotiate for their own fees, do you think they will negotiate for your property? And a lot of them go, no, actually, you're right. So I think it's important to negotiate for your fees, for your charges, and stand up for it. You back yourself up that if you're going to deliver a service, I am worth that amount. So I think that's really important. A lot of times we don't ask as a business owner because we're too scared to lose a business. So that's really important to have that difficult conversation at the beginning. Yeah.
And if you're confident, then there's nothing because you're speaking from the truth, there's nothing to fear, really.
A lot of people overpromise and underdeliver. In our businesses, quite a lot of people do that. But if you can underpromise and overdeliver, but at the same time do what you're going to say you're going to do, then you can ask for your fees and charges, and people are prepared to pay. In terms of success story, one that is quite interesting was a few years ago, we had one of our staff, which Rob knows as well. We did a session before our strategic plan. We had a facilitator who came and talked to everyone and asked them, if you could do anything, what would that be? So which is quite a bit outside of what we do as a business owners. We don't want them to think of other things, but we thought, let's see. One of our staff actually said that she wanted to be a midwife, and it was completely out of blue. Yeah. And that facilitator met with them. They started talking about it and came back to me and said, Suzanna, this is one of the staff has said that. Now, she'd been in the industry for 15 years. She was with us for a few years. She was amazing. I didn't want to lose her, but at the same time, I thought, if that's her dream, I have to support her dream, regardless of the fact that I'm going to lose her. She's not going to be a midwife working for a real estate company. We supported her. She enrolled in the course. I think sometimes as a business owner, you have to be a bit more open-minded, because she would do her studies, but at the same time, she would work so hard for us, after hours, days, nights, because we gave her the opportunities. Yeah. She went above and beyond to help us with the business.
And I can just imagine she's here in the middle of the couple giving birth, the mum giving birth, and she have a chat with the husband on the side and realize they actually need a new house, need to upgrade a house. And she can say, I used to work with Suzanna. So she might even sell her house as well.
It's interesting. Well, it's interesting because when she did the course, she did a bridging course, and then she started going to university. And then within 18 months, 2 years, she came back and went, Suzanna, I have realized why I wanted to be a midwife, and it wasn't to deliver the baby. I actually wanted to hold the babies and help out. So it was completely different things. Yeah. I'm actually going to look at something completely different. By giving her that opportunity, she didn't go another 20, 30 years wondering, what if I had become a midwife? She had the opportunity. She tested it out. It wasn't for her, and she decided to stay with real estate. So I think for me, it was interesting to see the full circle, but it was really rewarding that she didn't go wondering many years later, what if I should have become a midwife? So that was important.
Yes.
So I'd just like to make one comment. Yeah. I think, and you've heard what Suzanna has said and how she treats her staff and how she approaches her clients. The majority of her work comes from referrals. One of the first things I look at is, where's your work come from? Does it come from your website? In Suzanna's case, it was referrals, referral after referral. They're the best that you get. They're the best because most people won't even get another quote. Yeah. If somebody's recommended, in this case, Suzanna's business, and that was a respected friend who recommended, the value of that is just priceless.
Yeah. So, Rob, usually you always end our discussions with something very profound. Have you got something profound for us today?
I don't know whether it's so profound, but I think owning a business is one of the most exciting and rewarding things, but at the same time, it's so challenging. When we run our business fundamentals workshop, we say, if you don't want to go ahead, that's fine. We point out the challenges ahead. It is not for the faint-hearted. But the rewards at the end of it, right? But when I sold my last business after 15 years, I thought, wow, not only the financial reward, but the achievements and how you build up your staff and your people. Then to be able to continue in a mentoring fashion where I'm still so much involved with my clients, I feel like I've got lots of businesses now, right? It's a vicarious satisfaction that I get from seeing my clients win and come out on top.
Yes.
Now, Suzanna's entering into this field of mentoring. She sees it as a career, and she'll be brilliant at it, as you've already picked up with the words that she's spoken to you about it. So we're delighted to have her on our panel.
Yeah. So what I'll do, Suzanna, I'll put your details on the show notes as well, that people can get in touch and they know your vision and what you stand for, and people can get in touch with you through our show notes. And Rob, people can get in touch with you through the Polara's website as well, which I'll also put on the show notes. We'll definitely want to get you back next year for another one, Rob.
We'll have another discussion on marketing, shall we?
Marketing.
We have different views on that. Slightly different.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's not something that the numbers people appreciate.
Well,
many-
but you
say
have to do it.
the marketers always want to keep the bean counters out of the marketing engine room, but I say give them in. You got to get synergy between operations, accounting, finance, marketing, and HR as well.
Yeah, I think marketing is important. You just have to know whether it's effective, and if it isn't, you change or you stop or you do something else. Definitely have to do marketing, but you have to know, because you can throw a lot of money out without seeing any results. You just have to continuously measure and go, am I getting the result? And if I'm not, I can stop the
Again,
tap.
that's where your KPIs
Correct.
comes. Rob, thanks for coming in.
Oh,
mate.
thank you.
Great session, yes. And Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Still a bit
Yes,
early, but
Merry
anyway.
Christmas,
Merry Christmas. Susanna, all the best. I'll see you at the mentoring workshops. We'll perhaps in a year's time, and you can give us an update on your life, where you're going with the mentorship as well.
Big changes ahead, so I'm looking forward to 2025.
We're all going to thrive in 2025.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thanks, Johan.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Johan.
guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
That was a great discussion we had today with Susanna and Rob. I love the way they talk about strategy, numbers, budgets, and how it can bring us clarity and make sure we keep track of our vision. Before I go, I quickly want to say again, we all know that clarity brings you power in business. One definite way to get there is to make sure that you have total understanding of your business numbers. Financial clarity is the difference between being a price maker or a price taker. It's the difference between breaking even or making profits, or, as I said last week, it's the difference between running around like a headless chook, chasing cash. You got to pay your staff, you got to pay your angry suppliers, or you could be totally in control of your cash with no worries at all. Wouldn't that just be a treat? Numbers are a language of business, and I can help you stay on top of your numbers. Now, I will be launching a product early in the new year to do just that. The big reveal is coming very soon, so please stay tuned. I'll see you again next week for another discussion to bring you a little bit closer to live a bigger life in your business. That's me, Johan, signing off as your number man. Ciao.